Is Jared Smith the next five-star coming to Juice Fest? We'll find out.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Rebel Nation. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. Today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast, we dive into the excitement surrounding Jared Smith from Alabaster, Alabama. I love the name of that town. Coming to Juice Fest, we'll explore what landing a five-star recruit that's committing on August 3rd, by the way, could mean for Ole Miss. Plus, Lane Kiffin is bringing top talents like Caleb Cunningham, Shekai Mills-Knight to headline a star-studded cookout featuring commitments like Cortez Thomas and Hayden Bradley. This is huge for Pete Golding and Charlie Weis Jr.'s plans. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. And don't forget to find a second listen on the network, Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC, or even Zach Blackerby at Locked On Auburn. They provide other perspectives surrounding college football and the SEC, as well as Ole Miss, honestly. So check it out. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So really interesting. We got Juice Fest coming up this Saturday, and Juice Fest is going to be fantastic, honestly. If we're just going to be real about it, it's going to be absolutely nuts. And players like Jared Smith are starting to pop up as a visitor for that weekend. And he is committing on August 3rd. And August 3rd is an interesting day, honestly, because that is also the day that Ladarian Clardy is going to commit, the safety out of Escambia High School in Florida. And it's rumored to be about the same time that Shekai Mills-Knight is going to commit. So that is a big time period. And if Ole Miss was going to do something, that feels like something might be cooked up, but we don't know about that happening at all. But Jared Smith coming to Juice Fest, that's an absolutely big thing. The headliners of this weekend, obviously the five-star Jared Smith. He is ranked 19th in the entire country on 24/7 Sports, the number 2 edge in the country and the number 2 player in the state of Alabama. He has visits set up to Auburn, I believe, and South Carolina. Those are the other 2 schools competing for this. But Ole Miss getting a visit, essentially, because that's what this Juice Fest weekend is a visit right before the signing day and the signing commitment time. That's at least very interesting. You have Caleb Cunningham, who has been committed to coming to Juice Fest for months. He has had tweets out there, don't worry, I'm not going to commit to them, all of that stuff. He seems to be very solid with Alabama. But is that just him posturing on social media so people will leave him alone? I do not think that Ole Miss would have brought him in if they didn't think he was gettable. If this was a lost cause, he would not be coming up to Ole Miss just for giggles, essentially. So I don't think the door is completely shut on Caleb Cunningham. Obviously, we're going to follow to see if Deuce Knight makes an appearance. With Notre Dame's visit policy, this becomes weird. And Dylan Alford, who is visiting Clemson, if he does not get that committable offer, he is going to come down to Juice Fest, I do believe, or at least to Ole Miss. He is somebody that could be potentially back in the fold pretty quick. I do think that Dylan Alford wanted to go to Ole Miss, but he had his head turned on Clemson as well. And the last one is Shekai Mills-Knight. He's the other player that we talked about is committing on August 3rd. Good running back. Brian Smith, the Locked On recruiting czar, talked about the comp for what he would be, and his lateral movement and everything compares favorably to Quinshon Judkins in high school. Now, we're not saying he's going to become Quinshon Judkins. We're saying that stylistically they are very similar. But these are the headliners of this year's Juice Fest. And this is kind of going to be the last July Juice Fest for the foreseeable future, because next year, all of July is a dead period. And there's rumors of a June signing day popping in And if that happens, Juice Fest is going to move into May. So all we're doing is moving the recruiting process further and further along into the early parts of the year. But the point is, this could be the last July Juice Fest. And Lane Kiffin is using this as an avenue to honestly get a head start on the 2026 class. And we'll talk about that in the next segment, because those guys, you want as early of a start as you can get on those, because if they're going to move the recruiting cycle even further earlier, you need to exactly kind of have a way to make that work. Good running back, Jared Smith coming in. He's a 5-star defensive end. He's an edge. And I talked to Brian Smith about him on a show that's going to air tomorrow night. And he talked about how this guy just has the body type that you want. He wears a size 18 shoe. Basically, he said that this is a guy that is not buying off the rack. Wherever he goes, he's not buying off the rack. He's having to special order absolutely everything, and he has the athletic ability, the quick twitch, and the size and the frame to get everybody excited for somebody that could be an edge, could grow into a 3 technique, could grow into a 5 technique if you're looking at somebody like 17 years old growing up. But he's a big-time player. And obviously, a player this good in the state of Alabama does not leave the state very often. But every now and then, there's a player that you have a shot at. And like I said, Auburn being in this game is at the very least interesting, and nobody should discount that, him being an Alabama kid. But Ole Miss and South Carolina, I think Ole Miss can compete at that level and compete with the Auburns. And if he truly is a player that wants to get out of the state, I can see where Ole Miss could make some hay in this recruiting process. And this Juice Fest right before his commitment date, like I said, it's at least interesting. Do not discount Auburn. Honestly, don't discount South Carolina. There's not a lot we know about how this is going to go. But Brian Smith seemed at the very least okay with hey, this guy, we don't really know where he's going to go. And this is a guy that lives in Auburn. Okay. Brian Smith lives in Auburn, Alabama. So he has connections in that area with people that would know. So we'll see. Like I said, do not be surprised if at the end of the day, Jared Smith ends up at Auburn. Do not be surprised at that at all. But don't be surprised either as well if he ends up at Ole Miss or South Carolina. So, but it all starts with the cookout this weekend. And the Shekai Mills night thing, I've heard like his name pop up all the time. I've talked about it a couple of times. He should be committing around that August 3rd time frame as well. As far if you read the tea leaves, he got a RPM prediction from Chad Simmons, who is one of the head recruiting analysts with On3 Sports. I've talked with Zach Berry at the Ole Miss Spirit. I've talked with Brad Logan with Inside the Rebels. A whole bunch of stuff going on with recruiting, and it all looks good for Ole Miss. This is a guy that has been an Ole Miss football fan for a few years at this point. And I think Ole Miss is leveraging that. If you look at what their backfield is going to look like, you can sell that. And with the players that Ole Miss is going to add to this running back room, because it's not just going to be Shaquille Mills night. I think Jamari Morrow, who is a commitment to Missouri, he's somebody to watch. And I think what is his name? Trey Kinkle, I believe, at Holly Springs. That's somebody you need to pay attention to as well. So we'll see how that goes. Up next on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, find out how Juice Fest is not just about the present, but also the future, as Ole Miss gets a head start on recruiting for 2026. Stay tuned. Game Time is your place to get Ole Miss tickets. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from receipts, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Ole Miss tickets. You go to Vaught-Hemingway Stadium, you always want to make sure there's not really a bad seat in that place, but you want to make sure you're in a place that has that viewpoint that you want. They have views from every seat in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. You can check that out before you buy. They have the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc. Take the guesswork out of buying Ole Miss tickets with Game Time. And with this being the most anticipated season in Ole Miss history, I might be able to help you out with tickets. So listen to this. This is all one word. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn down the volume with all of that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, news and opinions, and more, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And there's still time to join the Grove Collective and help Ole Miss football be elite. You can go to thegrovecollective.com and join today. So it's really interesting stuff. Ole Miss has several 5 stars that are looking at coming in for Juice Fest. It's going to be a big week for the 2025 recruiting class. As Zach Perry said the other day, everything you just kind of keep chipping away because you have some flips that you're shooting for. You have a couple of players that are out there, but it's kind of cut and dry from now until the finish line. So Ole Miss has taken this opportunity to get their 2026 class started and underway to at least find the players that they have ends with, okay? And if you look at, these are the top 2026 players that are going to be at Juice Fest. This is from Zach Berry and the Ole Miss Spirit. This was posted on Twitter, so everybody don't freak out about it. Ryder Lyons, a top 15 player in the entire country, a quarterback out of California. Zyan Gibson, a 4-star cornerback that was also top 100. Danny Bill, a defensive lineman that's in the top 100. Max Sutter is a tight end that's right around that 100 level. Vance Spafford is around 150. You got Preston Ashley, who is a legacy, I believe. I believe he is related to Tyrone Ashley in some way. The running back that caught the 92-yard touchdown pass against Tennessee in 1990. I believe they are related. Amari Latimer is on the list. Anytime I see a Latimer, I'm pretty fired up about that. You have Jamichael Jones, you have Michael Clayton, Luke Fahey, and DJ Williams. These are some good players, and if Ole Miss makes some headway with this group, and Ole Miss, let's say Ole Miss has a 30% hit rate on these players, they'll be in good shape in 2026. Ryder Lyons, we discussed with Brian Smith, the Locked On recruiting czar, about what he brings, and he's just a really, really good quarterback. He said he's a guy that whenever you see him actually throw the ball, you're like, man, that looks different. Ryder Lyons is definitely somebody that Ole Miss wants to make an impression on this weekend. And I talked to Brian, and he said, hey, he knows Ryder. And Ryder doesn't do anything just to do it. So if he's on Ole Miss's campus, he's genuinely interested in Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. Now, there's a lot of quarterbacks from Cali that's showing up at Juice Fest from 2026. Luke Fahey is another one that popped up. He's a 4-star guy. You have Michael Clayton, who's a quarterback from Florida. I think there's a couple of other quarterbacks in that class that are showing up as well. And this is important because quarterbacks generally commit quicker than other positions. So by next June, you want to have your quarterback all sewn up, potentially by February. So the recruiting for quarterbacks are well underway, and Ole Miss has a nice little roster. 2026 is coming in. And then you have DJ Williams, who is a receiver from, I believe he's from Southwest Florida, somewhere down there. He's somewhere in Florida, committed. No, he's from Carrollwood. He's from Tampa. Sorry. So he's from Central Florida, like me. Guy that can play cornerback, guy that can play wide receiver. He fits what Lane Kiffin likes to do. So we'll see exactly how that goes. And Preston Ashley, like I said, I'm pretty interesting to see how that will look. And honestly, with, Tyrone, that there is actually a relation there. Tyrone actually having, that's when I was 14, 15 years old. That's kind of that sweet spot of fandom. And Tyrone Ashley against Tennessee, I'll never forget it at all. Good player for Ole Miss. So we'll see how it goes. But Ole Miss is getting a head start on recruiting in high school football with the Juice Fest weekend, with the dead period that is ending either today or tomorrow. Yesterday was the first day of fall camp for Florida State. just to bring this up before we get into the other stuff in the next segment. That probably means sometime around this time next week, Ole Miss is going to start as well, if you want to look at this logically. If Florida State is starting practice today and the first game is on August 21st, Ole Miss's first game is on August 31st, 24th. Ole Miss's game is on August 31st, so you have to figure a week later with the start time. So we're pretty close. I can feel the switch getting flipped from off-season to fall camp, and that mind transition is happening as well. So I'm pretty fired up about what can happen. So Juice Fest is going to be at least very interesting. Like I said, everybody knows the way I look at high school recruiting and the way I look at the transfer portal and where I see Ole Miss fitting. But Ole Miss is going to be losing somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 to 50 players this offseason. So the transfer portal and high school recruiting are going to be a big deal, at least for this year, as far as filling out a roster. And it might even be bigger than that, because as we're going to talk about in the next segment, if the roster goes up to 105 positions, full scholarship, fully funded, I mean, it's going to be harder to recruit Alabama. All of this high school recruiting thing is going to be a lot different. So it's going to be a transfer portal type deal moving forward, in my opinion. So up next on Locked On Ole Miss, we'll dive into the House settlement that is set to be finalized this week. The changes could potentially spell the end for some sports at universities. Stay tuned. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Be part of history. So we're going to close out today in today's podcast with the news that the House settlement is going to go before approval processes by the end of the week. The long form, the big thing, the whole 9 yards. And we've all heard rumors about what that meant and how much money that could cost. I mean, they're anticipating somewhere around $20 million straight off the top at every university. It's just the year to year is what it is going to cost. And now everybody can understand where this money is going to come from. To me, I think the number of sports to be an FBS program, that has to go away, because you just absolutely killed the group of five with these rules. And I'll explain right now. These are the quick scholarship numbers that have popped up to give you a frame of reference of what is coming. Football is jumping from 85 to 105, fully funded. Walk-ons are a thing of the past. The staple of what made college sports pure, good, fun. Honestly, what it originally was, no longer a part of college athletics. So football is going to have 105 fully funded scholarships with this rule, with this settlement. And basketball is going to add 2 additional scholarships. They'll go up to 15. But here's the problem. Once you get past there, you're going to have some problems. Baseball is going to 34. They're adding 22.3 scholarships. Now, I like college baseball. I enjoy watching college baseball. Ole Miss is a huge college baseball school. Everything about college baseball is fun. Ole Miss would fund 34 scholarships in college baseball. I'm not saying they won't. The problem is, when it was at 11.7, they were fighting with schools trying to get them to keep from giving up college baseball at that point, because it was such a money loser for them, and it was too many scholarships, and it was too much of a cash drain on their athletic department. Schools were getting rid of baseball. And that was at 11.7. Now, what are you going to do at 34? I mean, I guess you could just not fund them, but that's just going to start a haves and haves not thing and make college baseball even more separated than it already is? Are we at a point, honestly, realistically, to where Ole Miss just plays in the SEC and all the SEC schools plays against themselves? To where there's 15 series per year. You just play everybody and then you go into the regional. Is that the point that we're at the moment? If you look at scholarships for softball, 25 fully funded scholarships now, up 13. Up 13 that you have to fully fund. Think about the cash flow drain for softball moving forward. Volleyball, adding a bunch of scholarships, plus 6 up to like, I think that says 13 or something like that, or 18, sorry, plus 6. These are cash drains. You have gotten officially into the classification of non-revenue sports. So Ole Miss is going to be able to fully fund all of its sports for the foreseeable future. I do believe. Okay. This isn't a problem for Ole Miss. This is a problem for Southern Miss. This is a problem for Louisiana Tech. Heck, this is a problem for Cal. Cal tried to get rid of college baseball just a few years back. And stuff like this is going to make it go further. Now, the thing that's going to happen is you're going to have a school, I don't know who it is, but whoever it is decides to just cut sports right and left and go down to like 5. It's going to happen. Just get ready for it. It goes down to 5 sports. And so the NCAA is like, fine, you have to have a minimum to play in the NCAA Division I level. And they're going to sue. And they're going to say, hey, no, you can't ask me to pay that much money when you unilaterally did it. And they're going to win. And you're going to see a Division I that is not off of sports and attendance and things like that. It's going to be off of want to be there. And whenever that happens, you might have a situation where North Dakota State and Montana all of a sudden are D1 programs. Division I schools, because of attendance and stuff like that, cannot be sent down to FCS. Or maybe, just maybe, I don't know, another division gets created. And we just start being real about this. That 50 teams, 60 teams in FBS, they break away from the G5 and they do their own thing to where they take a little bit more of the financial burden than the G5 schools or the FCS schools or the D2 schools. That should be interesting, but the way it's set up right now, to where you're going to ask Southern Mississippi, Louisiana Tech, heck, Dallas Baptist, who is a college baseball power that pops up in the regionals and they've made it to Omaha and all that, you're going to ask them to pay for 34 scholarships. College baseball does not bring in the revenue to justify 34 scholarships. And college softball and college volleyball absolutely does not. I can understand this house settlement being very heavy towards football and basketball. I do, 100%. The players in those sports deserved compensation and has for several decades at this point. Money has been made at such a high level, it made absolute sense for them to reach out and try to get their piece of the pie. Not mad at them at all. But the problem is college sports and the NCAA, they needed basketball and football to break away a while back, because now the anchor of these non-revenue sports is going to pull college football and college basketball under. It just is. And we have gotten to the point, this is the kicker, to where the next TV contract is not guaranteed to be higher than this one. Everybody just assumes that the chart goes up. Well, right now the pie is getting split so many different ways. The amount of money could be difficult to come by. And that $20 million, that $30 million of having to pay is going to have to continue. It's going to have to continue moving forward. That's non-negotiable. And it has no effect on whether you're getting $140 million or $120 million or $110 million. All it means is the players are going to get a larger cut of that money. And whenever that happens, whenever money becomes the source of everything, you're going to be in trouble. You just are. You're going to be in trouble. You're going to start cutting non-revenue sports, and that is going to cost athletes for opportunities for athletes, which is what college athletics was really started with. So the NCAA and college sports have started down this road. It is past the point of no return. We have to make the absolute best of it. So this is what I recommend to everybody. Okay. Now that the university is actually handling the salary, I'm a huge proponent of that. I've been calling for that for a while. So sit back and enjoy this as best you can for as long as you can. We don't know what the next stage and evolution of this is going to be. All I know is at this point, everything that they go to court with, they win, and the whole infrastructure changes. So enjoy this season, enjoy next season, enjoy this for as long as you can get, because we don't know how long this current iteration is going to last. So thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen. We have the most perspective surrounding Ole Miss sports, and it's one of the many reasons why we're the number one Ole Miss podcast out there. And thank you for your support. And now you can become a Locked On Ole Miss insider in what is sure to be the best way to follow Ole Miss sports moving forward, and certainly the easiest. It's a texting program where you can ask to be notified on anything relevant in Ole Miss sports, and you can get this without having to deal with message boards full of trolls and all of the stuff of trying to find relevant stuff. The best part, it comes with a 14-day free trial. So we're going to add perks as it grows, and it should be, honestly, the future of college sports coverage. So there's a link in the description. We'd appreciate it if you signed up. For those of you on YouTube, we will send you to Locked On Sports Today right now. Howdy toddy, everyone.